Hey, boys and girls, this is Mr. Bell. Today we're going to talk about exponents, and by the end of this video, I want you to know what exponents are, and I want you to know how to write them in expanded form. I want you to know how to write an expanded form number in exponent form, and then I want you to know how to come up with an answer. Okay, so let's get started. First of all, when you're talking about exponents, there's two things that you need to remember about an exponent. The first thing is that this is called your base. All right? The 3 in this problem is called the base. The 5 is called the exponent. These are two new vocabulary words. You need to make sure that you add them to your glossary. All right? And make sure you have definitions for both of them. All right, so what you really need to remember about exponents is that it's the same thing as addition and multiplication are. It's the same relationship. Multiplication is repeated addition. Okay, if you have 3 plus 3 plus 3, it's easier to say 3 times 3. Or if you have 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2, it's easier to say, I don't know how many 2's I said, but 2 times 5. Okay, so this is repeated multiplication. If I have 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, then it's easier to say 3 to the 4th power, okay? Or at least it's easier to write. So the only thing you have to worry about with exponents is that it is, okay, repeated multiplication. Now I'm going to use this as an example, and I'm going to show you exactly how it works, okay? So once again, we're going to take this exponent and we're going to write it in expanded form. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 3's. My exponent was 5. Okay? So now, to get my answer, all I have to do is multiply all these numbers together. So I could start like this. Say 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 3 is 9. Times this last 3. All right, 9 times 9 is 81. Times 3 equals 243. Okay, so 3 to the 5th power equals 243. It's that simple. You just do the same multiplication over and over and over until you've multiplied all the numbers together. How many ever numbers that exponent tells you to multiply together. Now, there are a couple special kind of exponents. You may have heard these terms before. The first one is called a square. When you have a exponent that's a square, you have a number, any number, that's what the A represents, any number you could think of, raised to the 2nd power. That's a square, okay? And this is the reason why it looks that way, or why we call it a square, because it makes a square. You also have a cube. Okay, once again, any number you could think of, if you raise it to the 3rd power, the result is a cube, like this. Okay, the next thing you need to know about exponents is that anytime you have a number that's raised to the 0 power, the answer is always going to be 1. Now this is important. Anytime you have a number that's raised to the 0 power, the answer is going to be 1. So if I have 8 raised to the 0 power, the answer is 1. Okay, let's do a couple of examples, and I'll show you how to write it in expanded form, and then get an answer, and then I'll show you how to take the expanded form, write it as an exponent, and get an answer. Okay? All right, so the first one I want to do is 2 to the 3rd power. So let's write it in expanded form. Keep in mind, 2 is my base, 3 is my exponent. My base is the number that I'm multiplying. The exponent tells me how many times I'm multiplying that 2. All right? 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. So 2 to the 3rd power is 8. All right? Keep in mind, this does not mean 2 times 3. That is not what that means. All right, This is the last example I'll do where I take an exponent and write it out in its expanded form. Okay? So 1 to the 9th power means I go 1. 1 is the base, that's the number I'm multiplying. 9 tells me how many times I have to multiply it. So 1 times 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 1 is 1. Okay? This is an important one because you'll see this sneak into a test all the time. In this example, I have a series of numbers that are multiplied together, and they happen to be the same number. So 5 times 5 times 5 can be written as an exponent to save yourself some time and some space. So 5 is the base, so that's the big number, and then I count how many times the 5 is in the problem. 1, 2, 3. So my exponent is 3. All right? That's how you take a number that's written out in expanded form and turn it into an exponent. All right? So if I wanted to solve this, I would say 5 times 5 is 25 times 5 equals 125. Okay, last example like this. 4 times 4 times 4 times 4. 4 is my base because that's the number that's being repeated. And then I have 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. So that's 4 to the 4th power. To get the answer, I multiply. 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 4 is 16. Then I multiply 16 times 16. And 16 times 16 is 256. So my answer is 256. So now you should be able to tell me what an exponent is. You should be able to tell me how to get the answer of an exponent. You should be able to take an exponent, turn it into an expanded form, and you should be able to take expanded form and write it as an exponent.